So I'd like to talk about the bug bounty experience that we had in Kiwi.com because I believe it will be useful for folks that are contemplating such programs to the future. So this presentation comes in two parts. In the first part, I'd like to set the stage. What is bug bounty? Why would you do this? What are the hackers you'll be interacting with? And in second stage, I'd like to take a look at the precautions and recommendations, how you can prepare for such a deal. So, hi again. I am a senior application security engineer at Kiwi.com. I am managing our recently public bug bounty program. I also used to work as a penetration tester, so I really have experience from both sides of the barricade. In this presentation, you will see some reports from our bug bounty program. These were all processed by me, and they were sometimes quite heavily edited, but they are here to illustrate the points that I'm trying to make. So, setting the stage. What is bug bounty? You are responsible for some kind of information technology asset, be it some infrastructure, application, server, you name it. You don't want to get hacked. I think this is a given. It's just bad for business. You don't want this. So one of the tools you can deploy is a bug bounty program when you are basically saying, bring us the vulnerabilities. Let us know first before they are exploited. We will pay you for it. And this is how you will improve your security posture. Valid report will be rewarded. You are safer. Everybody's happy except the criminals that were trying to exploit your vulnerabilities. So this deal has some conditions that you are able to set. You are not going into this blind. These are usually called the program policy. There are several parts of this policy that you need to keep in mind. The scope is what is on limits and off limits, what assets are yours, what are the targets for the attackers and the hackers. Rules of engagement. There will be some activities that you would rather not have performed. Usually these are no denial of services, no kinds of social engineering, contacting your employees. You don't want that from random hackers from the internet. Very interesting for the hackers at least is the rewards table. How much money are you paying for the bugs they can find? And what's very important for them as well is a safe harbor declaration. These activities that the hackers will perform are usually illegal. So you are here declaring that if they perform these activities in good faith, you will not initiate legal action against them. For some hackers it's important, and they could get a lot of trouble if you start doing this. You don't need to manage all of these things alone. You can use a platform. There are several of them. Kiwi.com uses the HackerOne platform, but you can also choose from a Bugcrowd, Integrity, or if you'd like to try a local product, there's the Hack Trophy project made in Slovakia. So, what is the benefit of a bug bounty program against some other approaches that you might take? You are trying to discover vulnerabilities that malicious hackers will be exploiting, and this is how it can look like. So take a moment to take a quick look at this. So what can we see here? A good report contains some kind of asset identification. Where is the problem? Here we can see that the problem is at the deep link skypicker.com URL. Then all good reports have proof of concepts that you can use to verify the vulnerabilities. Here it's about a link that you can enter into your browser, and you should see how the vulnerability is triggered. And ideally, they will describe the impact, why is it the problem, or maybe some kind of recommendation how you can prevent this. So this is a pretty basic report, and you are expected to see reports like this. What's added benefit of a bug bounty program are fast reports. In this vulnerability, one researcher discovered that our website leaked credentials for a secure file transfer protocol, which is bad. And what's interesting about this is that this happened during our migration from one provider to another. So the site was live for like 15 minutes with these credentials public, and we already got a report on them. So that's how long it takes for the hacker to breach your assets. Another benefit of a bug bounty program is you can get specialized knowledge that will be otherwise hard to obtain. As well, some illustration. Yeah, we had an issue in our GitHub workflow pipelines. I'm not sure how many of you can know off the top of your head how a GitLab workflow pipeline works and what kind of problems they have. But this was the proof of concept that we received. To me, it's pretty much unreadable. But still, I was able to use this. I was able to verify it. And I was able to demonstrate that this is a problem that needs to be addressed, which is important because it's not something I will be able to find out on my own because I'm not focusing on it. But somebody else did, and we got it reported, so we reap the benefit. And also bragging rights. Yeah, by having a public bug bounty program, you are declaring a commitment to security. You are putting the money where your mouth is and basically saying, hey, whatever you can do, try and do it. And even if you succeed, we will not punish you, we will reward you. That is a powerful message for investors, for partners, and for some of the more tech-savvy clients that are interested in your products and solutions. One slight downside of this program is that you will be dealing with hackers. Hackers, by definition, are very creative individuals. They usually have some problems with authorities. And they are pushing boundaries all the time and, well, breaking them. It's like what they do. That's what they do. That's how they roll. So what are the problems related to this? Basically, it's that some hackers really have nothing to lose. Remember the safe harbor declaration? In addition to that, usually these hackers live in remote locations and use some kind of anonymized pseudonym. So you are not really able to find them even if you will try. They are not really punished for bad reports. So they can be pretty shameless in their efforts, meaning if their reputation on some platform gets too bad, well, too bad. I'll just create a new account with a fresh, empty reputation and I can start over. But they are rewarded for valid reports, basically universally, no matter the reputation. So they are incentivized to submit pretty much anything that they can. Continuing with that, hackers are usually masters of automation, and you will see a lot of automated tools delivered straight to your inboxes. And probably the most important message, so it's put in bold. Hackers will break the program policy. You can declare anything that you would like in your program policy, and for the most part, it will work. But be prepared that the policy will get broken. As an illustration, pretty much any policy that you can find contains this clause that you are not really interested in denial of service or distributed denial of service attacks. And yet, here is an example that the researcher discovered a vulnerability. The impact is denial of service, and he just tested it, and our application was unavailable for a few seconds. Fortunately, this wasn't a big deal for us, but it's very unpleasant, and it's exactly the kind of scenario that you liked to avoid. As I was talking about automation, take a quick read at it, and try to guess which tool produced this output. You have 10 seconds. Okay, who knows the tool? Raise your hand. Nice. So it's a burp suite. And this never saw human intervention. Basically, the researcher just set up the scanner, set up the mail delivery, and just press the button without any kind of verification. This report is, of course, garbage, and it's not applicable. Well, it's applicable, but it's not a problem. It's informative severity. But this is the kind of issue that you will be seeing. And hackers are also human beings, so there will be just some plain ugliness coming and seeing. So yeah, take a look at this kind of conversation, and I would recommend if you would jump into this, have slightly thicker skin. It's very beneficial for you. Yeah, we don't need to spend that much time on this. Okay. So, how can you prepare for this? The most important thing, the most important tool that you have is the program policy. I know it's boring. I know it is. It's policy. It's policy and policy implications, but please bear with me, because it's really the law that you are able to write for your assets. You have some resources when creating such a policy. You can browse through these platforms that I mentioned earlier, and you can read all of the public policies that they are. Try to understand their contents, try to understand why would such a part be present in there, try to understand what is applicable for you and what is not. You can read our policy at this link. It's hackerone.com/kivicom. Well, that's our policy. And don't worry about getting it 100% right for the first time. First of all, you won't. But second of all, you can and should update the policy over time as you discover more and more things about the security, about your posture, about your assets, and so on. But beware, if a report that you received made you reconsider the policy, it's kind of unfair to change the policy and then dismiss the report. You should really validate the report based on the original policy, and only then, only for the subsequent reports, you can argue that yes, this is our new policy and it's therefore fine. So that's one thing to remember. One of the biggest questions is setting the scope of the program. I'd recommend setting the scope as wide as possible, as this approach best suits the attacker that would really have no such internal issues. Like if they would find your assets, they will try to hack them. So we are really having a good model of this behavior if you set your scope as wide as possible. That being said, there are some good reasons for exceptions. And these are the things that you have minimal control over, but for some reason are under your domains or URLs. So it's good to ask yourself this question. If a vulnerability on this asset was reported, can I actually do something about it? If you can't do anything about it because it's a third-party software as a service and you have no control over the vulnerability at all, you shouldn't pay bounty for it because it's not really your problem. You should report the respective service, but these are the prime targets for scope exclusions. And as another example, let you read it. The hackers will regularly miss the scope, and sometimes it's not as clear if they manage to hit it or not. So please be patient with them. In this case, the researcher found some GitHub repositories that sounded like they belong to Kivicom infrastructure, but they are not. It's a random user with some Kiwi infra. I mean, it sounds good, but it was a complete scope miss. These are not ours. So we thank the researcher for his efforts and send him on his merry way. Yes, exclusions, more exclusions. We were talking about scope, now let's talk about the rules of engagement. You would like to deal with the 0 days, because especially the 0 days that were not introduced by your developers. If they were not introduced by your developers, they are not really your problem and they are hard to predict and manage. So what I would advise to do in this situation is to include a grace period. Because at the end of the day, the asset is still your responsibility, even if somebody else created a vulnerability in it. So we will say, hey, let's wait for 10 days. If the vulnerability is less than 10 days old, I will not pay bounty for it, because we need some time to patch, to test, to release. But after that, well, yes, it's a vulnerable asset that's in our infra, so we are interested in discovering it. And we should really pay the bounty for it because we should have patched it some time ago. Another important point are the employees and former employees. There are some conflicts in there, and you would not like to have your employees creating hard-to-find vulnerabilities in your code. You really don't want to incentivize this kind of behavior, so I believe it's best to just exclude all of the employees from participating in this program. And there will be also bugs that look really bad, but you know they are informative severity for your particular use case. These are also good to exclude because, hey, why not? You know it's not a problem. And as an example, take a look at this finding and notice how bad it sounds. So what we are seeing here is the researcher was able to find some Firebase database that was completely readable. Every security professional I know of, if he sees a completely public database, he would fall off his chair. So that's not good, but I know that we in our company use this database only to store some kind of configuration for our mobile application. This can be public. All of this can be public. We are not using it for anything else. So for us, this is an informative severity finding, even though it's a public database. So triage allocations and preparing for the hump. The first weeks of going public will be the most difficult weeks, and you should focus your efforts on preparing for these. So if you are using a platform, consider paying for a triage service. These are a team of professionals that will go through the traffic, go through the reports, try to classify them as either valid or invalid, or maybe needs more info, and do a lot of busy work for you. If you have a dedicated security team that will be dealing with these problems, please allocate their time. Give them some breathing room. Ideally, they would have zero responsibilities in the first few weeks because the traffic gets busy, as I can demonstrate in a while. Don't forget about the budget. You are trying to pay the researchers their money for their vulnerabilities. So yeah, you will need some kind of money for that. So prepare some rewards budget. More on that later as well. And for the security professionals that might find themselves in these positions, expect many false positives. A lot of the reports will sound valid, but they are not valid because it's kind of hard to produce some kind of valid report in some cases. So yeah, expect like very, very small true positive rate. Numbers. Everybody loves numbers. So you can probably guess when we went public on the bug bounty program. This is the number of reports that we received in our inbox. Before we went public, there are like 1, 2, 4 reports per month. And then suddenly it jumped to 122. And it went steadily declining, but still well over the usual numbers. So I think this graph illustrates just how big the load is for the first few months of the bug bounty program. This is the graph that describes how much money did it cost us to pay the bounties. CODECON is the nice low pink line. I don't know if it's readable, hopefully yes, but we paid like $4,000 in the first few weeks of the program. And the gray line is top 20 bug bounty programs that were also launched publicly. And you can see quite a massive spike. This number right here is $60,000 in a month. So that's quite a budget constraint. And yeah, you should be considering that if you are not comfortable with your security posture. And also expect to have the same vulnerability reported over and over again. You can see that this is about some kind of WordPress XML RPC vulnerability, and I've got full inbox only for these vulnerabilities. It's really getting tiring, and all of them are informative. That's the worst part, even if it was a valid report. So what can you do from the technical perspective? Hackers will throw every tool, service, technique, everything in their grandma at you. So expect automated requests. I recommend deploying rate limits to limit the traffic that will be accessible for your services. In the auto-scaling cases, you can actually save money because you are preventing the auto-scaling, which incurs more infra costs, especially if you are in the cloud. As you can see from this graph, 73% of the requests that we got rate limited. So almost 3/4 of the traffic we blocked based on the rate limit. And what was especially useful was blocking the most common security tools, user agents that we could think of. Your mileage may vary, but it was very useful for us. You can find some of the crowd favorites, such as GoBuster, DeerBuster, Fuzzfaster, UFool, and others. So yeah, last thing I want to say you, please don't fall into the perfection trap. There will be always some things to improve, some things to fix before you feel ready for this. This will never happen. You will never feel completely ready for this. So if you are considerate, at one point, just make the leap. Thank you so much. Here you can find some ways to contact me. It was lovely sharing with you this today.